that they're aware of what's going on. So I'll take questions on that when we finish tonight's presentations.
The next thing up was the transponder process. It's going very well. Rich and his group have done a great job putting this together. A lot of people are filling out the information. Again, what we're doing is there's no information on these recreation cards. We're trying to get everything organized, so we know who goes in where, what. If you lose one, who we return it to, and stuff like that. You guys are doing a great job so far. He's happy. If she's happy, we're happy. So, you know, hopefully it's going smooth to you guys that have done it already. She says it's a smooth transition. So, you know, if you have any questions on that, contact me or her. It doesn't matter, but so far so good. So keep up the good work on that one.
All right, I'd like to give an update on landscaping. Both the co-chairs for the landscape committee, Liz Hasselbacker and Brad Kimmel, are unavailable this evening. Otherwise, they'd be providing the update. The landscaping committee, just like all our other committees, was formed in early April. They met on April 21st for their second meeting. And since that time, several formal meetings have been held with Cintron, as well as, who's our landscape contractor, as well as additional informal meetings initiated by the co-chairs of the landscaping committee, Brad and Liz. We've had 2 community-wide tours that have taken place with Cintron. AJ from Cintron, who many of you know, was at one of those, and both AJ and Jose Cintron were at one of the other tours. Along with Brad, Liz, Adam, and myself, as I'm the board liaison to the landscaping committee. These tours identified some of the following landscaping issues, some of which have already been completed. But initially, right from the get-go, we noticed a tremendous amount of cleanup and extensive trimming that needed to be done around our beach club. And we made some recommendations for a thin layer of mulch to be laid down in some of our very bare areas around our beach club. Cleanup and dead plant removal on West Quarry Drive. You probably noticed a lot of those, a lot of that project for those who travel West Quarry Drive. And we have recommendations based on our last tour that was done on the 26th of May for recommendations for further dead plant removal. And that removal will require some excavation because the roots are deep. We've talked about fertilization of all the Mexican petunias on East Quarry Drive. They were looking really, really bad, and Cintron got after doing a cutting and some fertilization, and it looks like it's working. It looks like they're coming back. They've revived. And so we're making the recommendation based on Cintron's advice to do further fertilization on the Mexican petunias and for removal of dead plants along East Quarry Drive. We have issues with weeds throughout the community, sparse grass and weeds on the walking path down to the pond on the north side of East Quarry Drive. But there is no irrigation in that area, so at this point it doesn't seem to make sense to put anything in there when you don't have irrigation lines running to that area. Other areas throughout the community, we have a lot of dead plants, and as you know, the whole landscaping issue is part of our Chapter 558 issues that we have sitting with Pulte due to the poor soil that's always been here at the quarry.
No soil.
No soil, right. A recommendation was made by the landscape committee to the QCA board to not replace the dead plants in the common areas. Now, we are still replacing them for individual homeowners, but in the common areas, we've held up putting in new plants until we get a more comprehensive plan in place for the quarry community. And the landscaping committee had proposed that we would like to hire a landscape architect to create a landscaping plan for our front entrance, down Quarry Drive to Weathered Stone to our beach club, and then the entire beach club property, all of these really being the focal point of our community. So they'd like to get an architect to draw up some plans because this is, you know, our resort. This is really what is our showcase for the entire community. So let's start there. The board did approve to hold replacing the common area plantings to determine the amount available for the architect. And based on the amount the community has spent to date on landscaping, as well as the amount forecasted for the remainder of the year, the board will be taking a vote tonight to authorize up to $30,000 to be spent for a landscape architect to draw up plans for the areas I just identified. And if this is approved, the board is authorizing the scope of the project and for the landscape architects to be interviewed. And then once a contractor, landscape architect is selected, recommended for selection, a board meeting would again be held to vote to authorize moving forward with the selected architect and for the plans to be developed. If approved, and depending on the outcome and cost, we may consider the architect for additional work on berms, beds, islands throughout our community. The quarry is one of the premier communities in Naples, but our landscaping leaves much to be desired, especially as compared to surrounding communities. You know, right next door at the Esplanade, down the street at Saturnia Lakes, which I understand was a tomato farm at one point in time, and that's why their soil is so fertile. But we have our problems here, obviously, with all this rock. This was an active quarry at one point in time. And as I said earlier, the landscaping issues are contained in our Chapter 558 notice. A third-party consultant, Land Associates Incorporated, was hired back when we had the Quarry Transition Committee back in 2014. And this company did a very comprehensive analysis, and that was included in the forensic engineering review. So, you know, depending on where we end up with the lawsuit, hopefully it doesn't get to court. Hopefully we can get everything resolved with Pulte outside of court, but you just don't know how long, you know, this process is going to take. Hopefully we'll be getting some money to address all these landscaping issues in our community. It's a good thing that the Quarry Transition Committee had this study done by Land Associates, because it contains a lot of very, very good information that is being used in the lawsuit. Additionally, the following topics were discussed with Cintron on the landscape tour that we had on May 26th, and Cintron will be performing the following services in the near term. As I mentioned, they're going to be putting a thin layer of mulch on the beach and tennis areas to freshen up the areas. Many of the areas look very, very barren right now. Any remaining mulch will be used to fill in the beds on West Quarry Drive, where the shillings are being removed. The dates for mulching and shilling removal will be communicated by Cintron once they're confirmed. Herbicide, we're putting they'll be putting spot treatments on all turf in June, which will be done once the shrub insecticide treatments are completed. On West Quarry Drive, the viburnum awabuki, an estimate will be sent to fill in the gaps in the hedge. Pricing will be provided for two options, 25-gallon plants and 15-gallon plants, and the dead awabuki plants will be removed with an excavator. The bottle brush tree on West Quarry Drive, which is nearly consumed by the plantings around it, will be cleaned up so that it looks like a multi-stem tree. There's a row of magnolia trees, and there will be an experimental injection that will be performed on two of the identified magnolias. On Kakina Circle, the grasses will be cut back along the preserve during regular pruning, and an estimate has been sent to remove the sable palm behind the home at 9578 Kakina. On Gypsum Way, we're going to be removing, Centron will be removing landscaping, a landscaping bed that has a lot of dead arbicola and other dead plants. I have to tell you that once all those dead plants are coming out of that landscaping bed, that will be nearly bare. It's really bad. It's got a lot of dead plants. On Flint Court, the Mexican petunias will be cut back, and a bird of paradise. I'm not sure how that bird of paradise got in there, but that's going to be removed. It's not looking too good. The limestone, an estimate will be provided to remove all dead and dying loropetalum plants on the berm. That also is a very large berm, and there's quite a few dead plants there. Quarry East, all the Mexican petunias will be fertilized again, as I mentioned earlier, as it appears that recent fertilization has worked. And the dead sable palm will be cut down by the golf cart crossing path between 3 and 4, poles 3 and 4. On the bridges, there's a couple dead trees, and we're getting an estimate on getting those removed. Centron was made aware of the deficiencies in their maintenance, which we said must be corrected, and these items included more attention to detail. We shouldn't have to have the 2 landscaping co-chairs and myself and Adam going around already 3 times to point out problems that they should be attending to themselves. We need better raking of the beach. We've had some discussions with the golf course because they have the equipment to help us out with that. And so that is being discussed in this ad hoc committee that we have looking at potential synergies between HOA and golf. Additional resources, Centron needs to put additional resources, and they've committed to do that for weeding. Getting up to date with trimming the trees, Adam talked to you about that earlier. Eliminating the weeds and the turf, and maintaining the back road. So as I said, Centron has committed to addressing these concerns. So before we take a vote as a board to vote on authorizing $30,000 to be spent for an architect, I wanted to open up for discussion on this. But before I do that, I do want to say that the reason we can do the $30,000 is because where we're running in the red to our budget is primarily in the areas of the food and beverage operations. We budgeted a certain amount based on Glenn's input for salaries for what we thought it would take to have as many people as necessary to provide the service needed. We've had our issues with that. Sometimes we've had overstaffing, and that's being addressed. That's one of the reasons we just cut back the hours on Monday and Tuesday. As we start the rainy season, we may be cutting back more hours because most people do not want to dine when it's pouring rain around them. But that is a big contributor to the fact of how we're running, why we're running in the red, and also in the area of our cost of goods sold. As Jerry explained, this is kind of a learning curve. When we put the budget together as the previous board for the operation of this Q-Bar, the whole beach club operation with Q-Bar, it was assumptions had to be made. And we looked at, how much revenue did the beach club previously perform, what was our cost of goods sold, looking at what restaurants perform in terms of cost of goods sold on both food and beverages, and it looks like we probably estimated too low on that cost of goods sold. And so the problem that we're having is that the revenue that we projected, we're doing fine on. In fact, we're having more revenue than what we anticipated. So you have a revenue here, but it's jumped to here, but you had a cost of goods sold here, and it's too high to the revenue. So that's really the reason we're losing money. So you say to yourself, do we, in order to get current and in the black on the budget, do you put a pause button on all that you have to do here to maintain our community? we don't think that's the right thing to do. What we've done is, for example, in landscaping, we put a halt on all the common area plant replacements to see, let's see if we can generate some money so that we can get something like an architect, and then hopefully we'll perform better than the $30,000, and that then we can start to address some of the dead plantings and start replacing some of those before homeowners come back, because I don't think too many homeowners are going to be very pleased when they see some of these beds with all these dead plants out. So I think at some point we've got to start replacing some of the common area replacements. But it just seemed to make sense to the landscaping committee co-chairs, to me as the board liaison to that committee, and to our board to say, okay, if we can come up with $30,000 of what we budgeted in our total landscaping budget, let's set that aside and use it for this architect, and then go from there. And depending on our success with that, hopefully we'll be able to set monies aside for next year to start implementing the plan, even maybe later this year. And also then we could maybe take it further out into the community with the architect drawing up some more comprehensive plans, because it's kind of a mishmash. It's, as phases were done, we have different developers, everything is different. There's nothing really very cohesive about it, and you can go through other communities and it looks so much nicer. And this is just, such a shining star here. We just need to be able to get this landscaping up to date. So we believe it is a good decision to say, let's take monies from landscaping, as long as we're within that budget, and set aside for a comprehensive plan for a landscape architect, rather than telling every area of the budget, you don't get to do anything because we're running too high on our salaries and what we projected for cost of goods sold. I said at the last meeting, and I know it's been some discussion among the finance committee, I truly believe that we should always endeavor to have a break-even budget. I mean, this whole beach club operation is based on the assessments for the people. You develop the budget, and then you divide it by the 900 homes, and we say this is what you owe for your assessment for the year. And when you don't have that right in any area of the budget, then you're going to experience what we're experiencing right now on the tiki bar operation. But we're hoping that we get better during the year, but wishing and hoping doesn't get you a whole lot. You've got to have a plan, and we think that some of the things that we've got in place between Glenn and Adam really focused on the staffing, more attention on the cost of goods sold, we'll get better at that. I don't think it's going to get us into a black position by the end of the year, but when we get our budget together for next year, hopefully we'll be better at doing that. You're never going to make a profit. These are amenities. They're amenities for you to enjoy, and you pay for those amenities in your assessments. So based on what we see now, I can pretty accurately say that assessments will be going up if we want to do these things. I mean, you can't have a gold plan for landscaping on a silver budget plan, and that really goes for everything in our community. So we are at right now what you paid basically in 2015. That's what you're paying in 2017. We reduced it last year because of the monies that we got from Pulte, and used some of those monies to fund reserves, and we had savings from the Cintron contract, but I also believe that Cintron is having a very difficult time because they came in, they lowballed the number that they could maintain this quarry, and they're having some difficulty trying to get this done. So I expect landscaping, that contract is up next year in April, I believe. April of 2018, the landscape committee will start taking bids. They're going to get started early, not only with Cintron but other contractors. And we've had people say, why can't our community look like we don't power wash our curbs and sidewalks. We've never done that. What we do is spot cleaning. And they say, go next door to Heritage Bay, it looks so much better. Well, they pay for that, they budget for it. And so we're developing a wish list, and we're putting all these things that people are saying to us on that wish list, so that when we start our 2018 budget process, and our finance committee will definitely be part of that process from start to finish, as well as Glenn. He was part of it for last year. I don't think he really anticipated that we were going to run a 7-day-a-week happy hour, but I think that's what people want. So anyway, we just have to do a better job contemplating all these things, but to get a gold plan, you got to pay gold assessments. So I'm just kind of giving a heads up that next year I think you're gonna see an increase. You haven't up to this point for the most part, just very, very small incremental. As I said, 2017 is very close to what it was in 2015. But to do all the things that everybody wants, all these committees are giving us ideas for what they'd like to see, it costs money. So we'll be very hard at work, getting started very early with our 2018 budget process. So back to the landscaping. Any questions about the architect? Yes, Kevin.
Kevin Lee, President of North Atlantic Condominium Association. I noticed that the berm at the boat yard wasn't on that posting you had there. And for 2 years I was fighting with Pulte because the construction destroyed the majority of the plants there on that berm. And with no good results. It was placed on the landscape plan they had. Adam will confirm that. We were the next ones to get done on that berm. Everything was done, the circles and everything else. The new board got elected and came to a screeching halt. So I would like to at least be assured as part of the 5.8 plan to go after Pulte with regards to that landscaping issue.
Is that QCA property?
The berm is correct.
Okay. All right, we'll make sure, Kevin. We'll get together and make sure. We've been adding issues left and right. Chip's kind of our lead board person on adding issues. Yeah, the list just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I fought with them for 2 years, Scott Brooks, and they just refused. Their workers were sitting in those beds every day, eating lunch, driving trucks over them, and everything else, and nothing ever got done. They refused to do it.
Okay, we'll.
Get with me on that. But not all the circles were done either. So.
Yes, Tom.
Tom Schulbach, could you please add the Quarry Drive meeting on the west side to the architect's scope of work? It's a pretty prominent landscape feature, and I don't recall your mentioning that it's part of the $30,000 scope.
Could you repeat where you
The
said?
Quarry Drive median, the racetrack, that one. From Coquina to the main gate, the west side, where we have double drive. It's a pretty prominent landscape feature.
Yeah, I just don't know that we can get that done for the $30,000 that we are authorizing for the landscape plan. I mean, we can take a look at it, but right now
Please do that much.
we've been giving it a lot of attention. I know there are huge issues, well, not only on West Quarry, East Quarry as well. It's a mess. Yes, Linda?
Linda Hill, my question is, what is the actual total budget for the landscaping, and does that mean landscaping and maintenance? I don't know what that means, your landscaping budget.
Yeah, the landscaping budget, what is, how many line items are there?
There's a line for the mulch, there's the line.
What's the total? of your-
When we're talking the reflected savings, we're talking specifically replacement.
No, I just wondered what the total budget is for landscaping, so I could
Probably
say,
about $1.6 million.
How
I was
much?
guessing about $1.6 million.
so 30,000 is not a large amount to authorize for this landscape person. My question is, do you have an overall plan now that we work off of, or do we have no plan?
We have no plan.
We are not working off of anything now.
No.
Is that, no, I see some, what are we working off of now?
The challenges we've had in Corey is when AJ and I or whoever have done a property drive, and we find areas that need, areas that are looking bare or dead, we come up, we pull things out, what's gonna work in this area? Can we do firecracker? Can we do petunia? Can we do the same old green thing that's everywhere in the community? We've tried different areas, what's gonna work in different areas? No, there is no long-term plan, anything we've ever done. We've tried spot fill-ins.
Are you our landscape architect?
Sure. No, we always go with Cintron. Cintron's gonna
So
be,
they make suggestions.
correct,
Yes.
correct.
But they wouldn't have a suggestion for the areas that you're talking about?
That's not really their business.
That's not.
Cintron will be able to provide us with a plant type, but a design mechanism, it really wouldn't be their forte.
That's just not their thing.
Right.
Okay. I didn't know if that was something that was considered to have them. No. Okay. That's what I wanted.
Yes.
Do we have multiple bids on a landscape architect?
We will be getting them. Yes, Kathy.
Are you saying that Cintron does not have a specialty architect in their company? I mean, we've worked with Cintron for years, and I think they're very imaginative and have a lot of good ideas, but they don't have a specialty architect, is that what you're saying?
They do not have a certified architect in the landscape.
No, nor do they have the agronomist.
They don't have an agronomist, they don't have an arborist.
So anything that they need to get done where we're having issues with why are these Mexican petunias not thriving, they get an agronomist, they subcontract out, and then they take the advice given to them and apply it in the community. So really, Cintron is not, if you look at the side of the truck, Cintron lawn maintenance, that's their core business, is lawn maintenance and taking care of plants. But they really don't have, you know, the full scope of architect, landscape architects, agronomists, and so forth that some of the other
They came
companies
to us
have.
with, I mean, their business before we had them was really small time.
Yes.
Are they willing to go that extra step and find an architect and work with us or anything?
I don't know that, Kathy.
And, I mean, they're great. I think they're wonderful.
Yeah, it's really kind of a, I don't know, you can hear people that, you know, just like for everything else in the community, there are people that really like something, and people who say, oh, get rid of them, they're terrible. So, yes.
I just want, I'm Ed Walters, I'm the president of the Ironstone Association. And I can tell you that the toughest thing that we deal with is the landscape. Everything else is fairly easy to resolve. You can get good contractors to fix the roofs and the pavers and so forth. But the conditions that we have here are so horrendous that there's not a lot of plantings that will survive. I'm amazed that anything survives at all. And I watched plantings being done when new homes were being built, and they literally had to use a pick to make a hole in the ground to put a plant in. So we're going through the same process right now. We've interviewed a couple of landscape architects. We've also been in touch with some of the extension parts of the university. They have very extensive resources available that pretty much are free. I would also mention to you, we're fortunate enough, we have a landscape committee in our community, and we have, one of the members is a master gardener who works with the botanical gardens down in Naples. So I can sympathize with you. We're doing the same exact thing. We're pulling out a lot of dead stuff, and we don't want to go forward until we have a plan with plants that we know can survive. The other thing I want to mention is, hand in hand with that is the irrigation. It's just as important if you redo the plantings to look at the irrigation configuration, because if it's not correct, then the plants are not going to thrive. So those two things go hand in hand, and sometimes the irrigation can cost as much or more to reconfigure so that it works properly. So maybe there's some synergies here where we can.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, Ed Walters is the president of the Ironstone Condo Association. Silverstone those that run along pole number 18 and the golf course, they have already gone forward with developing some, they already hired a landscape architect and have some, so we'll look at, we've already looked at their plans and look at the architect that they used as a potential one that would submit a bid. But, you know, it's time, like you're hearing here, Silverstone's already underway with, you know, replenishing, Ironstone is underway, so it's time, we got to get after this.
Yeah, and I lived in Saturnia Lakes,
You did,
and I
yeah.
do not have a green thumb. You could plant a twig in the ground and it would grow. I mean, it was amazing.
That's what we heard, it was a tomato farm and anything grows.
You have my sympathies.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Sure, we can't avoid the $30,000 by, and I'm not saying this exists, but can't you go to a nursery company and say, we're quarry and we're going to buy X number of plants, you provide the nursery guy, and you guarantee the plants and you guarantee the irrigation?
That's possible. I'm leaving this up to Adam and as our property manager and the co-chairs for the landscape committee who are very, very knowledgeable. So I'm sure they're looking at those kind of possibilities.
Just let the
as
grass
well.
landscaper be a grass landscaper. It seems that we're trying to, expand his expertise.
Right.
Also, I would assume a great way to shop this guy is to go around and find subdivisions that, everybody's happy with.
Yes, and they have been doing that. They have been calling, but they just haven't had the go-ahead to
Yeah,
move
correct.
forward until we thought it was in the best interest of the community to bring this discussion forward tonight rather than just go ahead and for the board to say, hey, it's within the budget, let's just go do it. We want to get the discussion out there so that you know what's going on. And as I said earlier, we will, once the landscape committee in conjunction with Adam make a recommendation for the architect and how much that's going to cost, we'll come back, we'll take a vote and move forward on that. Yes, sir.
Other professional management companies that, I'm in the home, professional management companies, I've been managing these places, but this sounds like it's a 10-lot subdivision that we're running, and you 800 units. It's not professionally managed. You end up here year after year saying, well, we've got problems on this. I've been condo living since 1972. I've been in construction most of my life. I've been in condo associations for 3 years. I've been in condo associations through the construction phases, and this. When I hear what's going on here tonight, it's really pretty scary. Because this isn't something you spend $100,000 a year on. You're talking about millions of dollars for a budget. The condo association coming up in Boston right now, our budget's $2 to $3 million. And without having professional management,